All right, so you guys are just doing some calculation of finding those component vectors. And when you do that, you have to make sure to know your two equations to find component vectors. Does anybody remember those equations?
Vx equals v cos theta and cosine.
All right.
Vy equals v sine.
Not sin.
Oh, we were doing this.
All right, so to find the horizontal component, or the one going along the x-axis, you just do v cosine theta, and then to find the vertical component, the one going along the y-axis, we use v sine theta, v being the resultant, whatever that is. And then for letter A, mine's blanked out. I have kind of a blanked out version of it, but what was your angle? What did they give you?
92 at 34 degrees.
94 at 92?
192. Oh my god, I should not tell you this next time.
192 at
34 degrees.
34 degrees. So this was the size of the resultant here, and this is going to be your V, right? That's your resultant. And then at 34 degrees counterclockwise from the positive x-axis. So we can find the positive x-axis here, and we've got to go approximately 34 degrees. And I'm just going to approximate it. You have protractors, and you can get that exact, that drawn on there exactly. I'm not going to be concerned with drawing it. It's probably a little, so that's got to be fairly close to 34 degrees. Anyway, so now let's find the components. We need to find the horizontal component here. So all you do is, to find that, go v cosine theta. And so the v would be 192 times the cosine of the angle. Well, the angle is 34 degrees. And when you do that, what do you come up with?
Oh, we should post the book in one. No, we can share. And then we share.
159, good. Yay. All right, so 159. That's v in the x direction. Now let's do the vertical component, v in the y, and that is going to be equal to v sine theta. And we have the same resultant as before, 192, and the same angle, 34 degrees, but we're going to take the sine of 34 degrees, and we get the vertical component of that being approximately 107. 107. Okay, well, let's go 107 on there, right up there. So those are our two answers. That's all we need right there. That and this. Sometimes you might write it down. You could go the x component being 159 and the y component being 107 and use that as your answer. But if you just say these two things, that's really what we're looking for. Okay. And we're just doing variations of that for B, C, D, and E. On letter B, what was the length of the resultant?
103 at 125 degrees.
103 at 125 degrees, counterclockwise from the x-axis. So we find the x-axis and we go counterclockwise away from that, right? Mm-hmm. And 125 degrees would be, so slightly on this side? On the other side, okay. So make sure that we draw that on the correct side. Let me erase that, okay. Should be right before this 45-degree angle. All right, so now we know that one, and now we just need to know the y component and the x component. So if this is 125 degrees, what is this angle right there? 55. So we're really going to be using 55 degrees there. So now we can go for the x, go 103. And what function do we use for x, sine or cosine?
Cosine.
Cosine, and we'll use 55 degrees. And to get that 55 degrees, you can just take 180 minus 125, and we come up with 55. And so that's really where we're getting that 55 degrees from, just to clarify. And 103 times the cosine of 55 gives us okay, so we could go 59.1 or something, right? Would that be fine?
It's
Yeah.
negative.
Okay, but we know what this has to be negative. How do we know that?
It's in the negative x-axis.
Because this is going in the negative direction along this x-axis. So we have to make sure to make that negative. Okay, and then v and the y direction, or the horizontal component, we'll do the same thing, 103, but this time we'll do times the sine of 55 degrees. And we come up with 84.4. Let's go 84.4. Keep about 3 significant figures there. 84.4. And the reason why I stopped there is because in that 103 we have 1, 2, 3 significant figures, so I'm just keeping 3 in my answer on that one. And so those are going to be our 2 for that one. Okay. And then going through that, you're just going to continue doing the same process for these. For C, I'm just going to give you the answers here. V in the x and V in the y. So the horizontal component on C should be negative 105, and the vertical should be 44.5. D, we should get negative 117 for the horizontal, the horizontal component. And for the vertical component, we should get negative 52.1. And then going on to letter E, this is our last one here. We should get, for the horizontal component, negative 98.8, and then for the vertical component, we should get 54.8.